No, I don't. Hangouts is working? Oh.
Room 5, I'm assuming?
Yes, it is.
5, 4, 3, 2, it's one of those rooms, right?
The last one I sent, or this afternoon.
Pardon me?
Did you get the one I sent this afternoon?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, because it's different.
Okay. Well, if you have something. Unfortunately, I can't just plug it into with a flash drive.
Do you have access to your email?
Not on this machine, I don't.
Oh. How'd you get it on there?
I put it in OneDrive and downloaded it.
I can.
Nope.
I can log into mine and pull it. Download it.
That we can't do that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Oh.
Shoot, screw up our session.
Well, I can log in Firefox.
I don't think that'll matter, but
Why?
I've never been able to have two different logins on the same computer. That's about the problem we had last time. Let me check my email and see if it's up there. It is, we need to send it.
I have like 2.
Far. Yeah, the restrictions on this site don't allow me to read my email and Outlook.
Do you want me to send it to your Gmail account? Because aren't you logged into Gmail here?
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
Oh, I can go get it too.
Yeah.
Right.
date wrong, it's the 10/15 one, not
The 10/15.
because it's 10/16.
Okay.
15.
So, that's okay.
Hmm?
That's okay.
Nope.
So we'll work away.
Yeah, that was the right one.
So,
Yeah.
although I gotta get back to my, I have to figure out how to screen share. Just-
The right one.
Everybody sign in?
No. Cool. See. Now what would be special?
We'll give a few more minutes to people to get them to.
So, yeah, I should be able to tell. One of you is there. I don't know if that's counting.
Okay.
Could be. But the nice thing is we're recording all this tomfoolery, so including
good.
the audio, so, yeah,
That's good.
all the pre-show nonsense. Yes, we are.
How many people responded to the reservations today?
What'd you say?
How many people responded to the reservation today?
I had about a dozen.
Small group.
I don't know whether it's MEA or whether we just didn't get the word out quick enough.
Too tight last week as opposed to several weeks ahead.
Yeah, we need to put the thing, this next month we'll advertise a little quicker. We've had some communications issues. Our communication chair resigned
That's too bad.
Like 2 months ago.
2 months ago.
Any reason? Just no time?
She had some personal issues she had to need to deal with.
Just no time.
And I didn't think there was really that much she needed to do, but
No, but it is, when you're taking things off the plate, you just take them all off. Okay. Hold on a sec.
It is a period. That's a G, lowercase.
Okay,
Not
so this
very
is,
not very complicated, right?
so you guys just share this for access to it? Yeah, similar, similar to the command group for Viking Squadron, the whole staff.
Well, one of the things I thought we need to have, when I took over, we need to have something that's, that everybody has access to, so that, one person doesn't control everything.
Right, right. But there should be individual access controls, not one shared account.
Well, there was individual access control. The board, that's just a place to put documents related to the thing.
Yeah, I recognize.
But it would be nice to have
have all the
access to,
bank
it would be
accounts.
nice if Matthew gave us back access to our LinkedIn group. And
Really? He hasn't done that?
and give us access to our Twitter feed, because we don't have access to either one of those.
Yikes.
Maybe we should just start something.
Well, he usually speaks at the meeting that you're going to next week. Why don't you hit him up?
Yeah, we all need to.
Tell him we'll throw in a party.
I mean, it doesn't
information.
hurt that much. I mean, it's one extra way we get our message out to members. And there's a lot of people that are already signed up for these feeds and they haven't been getting anything.
Right, we're
for a
expecting
year.
that that's gonna be updated at the same time, but never shows up.
So that explains a lot.
Is this the same reading as what you're getting with that? With what I gave you?
Oh, as far as handwriting, should I
Yeah,
check it out?
sometimes my handwriting needs to. I put it in it. That's a bar, not an I. So. Now,
Yep, I just need to make sure I recognize that that's a Z there. Oh, did I say it? There's not a Z. Right, it was listening. My mistake. Just looked like it.
I think Chris got it right there. Cheap. Sorry.
No.
Oh, cookies. Did you choose that?
Is this how you get this from?
I just want to be able to.
How you doing? You look like your internal temperature's a little high right now.
It's very high. Network outage is at 2:00. And
Have you seen this?
these
I have
minutes
time.
just too early for my schedule. I can't
Right.
plan to get out of the office at 2. I'm an 8 to 7 p.m. worker these days, and this is half my day.
I could have joined by Google.
Super stressed.
Hang on. You want to use the Hangout?
Did you see this?
I did. Thank you.
Trouble with Hangout is I can't process membership checks, renewals, or accept credit cards.
Good point.
Yes, that's a little hard to do remotely.
Anybody need the sign-in sheet?
Yes.
Yeah, I only had the second page, so
I see.
I didn't, I forgot I didn't print out the full thing. You have your, what do you call it? Your phone?
I
You
do
have
not
this,
have the square reader with me, no.
okay. thought Scott was gonna be here today too, didn't he? Seemed the impression that he was gonna be here today.
Should we start?
Sure.
Today, we decided Amber is gonna be our leader, so she's gonna be the leader on this meeting.
We'll see how it goes. Okay. Cool. You can skip past this one. It's just the October chapter meeting. The agenda today, we're just gonna have a quick chapter update. And then we have a group discussion, top security challenges we're facing in 2016, or also probably now. And then we have a couple upcoming events in the Twin Cities not over here, so we'll just go over those. So we'll do a couple things. We have a couple committee chair positions open. One is meeting location, sponsorship, and communication. So if anyone's interested, the communication one is really just helping sending out emails.
I'm deaf.
Oh. The communication one is really sending out emails, doing that sort of thing. I believe Bob's doing a lot of the website stuff, so
Eventually. Once the
maybe.
site gets like access will be like accurate, so.
Sponsorship is helping find sponsors for the meetings. I think we have a sponsor for next month. Yeah,
Yes, I don't, now you're gonna, I'm gonna have to log
think
into the
that.
website.
So kind of helping line up sponsors. I don't know how many of you work with vendors on a day-to-day basis. Generally, those are the best place to find people to come and talk.
So along that lines,
Yep.
what are people interested in hearing? What, not necessarily specific sponsors, but what,
What are we interested in hearing about?
yeah, what specific technologies are you interested in hearing that have changed in the security world?
Data loss prevention, especially in SMB.
DLP in small business?
Yeah, medium business.
Business.
Meaning, what do you consider medium? Because that's a broad statement.
Maybe in the 250 to 2,000 range.
Okay.
There's a need for that based on the normalization challenges of the larger DLP tools.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, we have to remember not to get too technology focused specifically. I mean, the vendors obviously are in technology areas unless they're selling some kind of a framework or something that people are using. But as we go through the domains over the years, there's a lot more than just tool sets to be talked about.
So what we've focused on in the past is we focused on domains. So in other words, the CISSP used to have 10 domains, now they have 8. And each meeting we tried to hit at least one of the domains on something and try to get our meetings focused towards that.
So what are we missing? What have we not done in a while? Maybe we can find a vendor that matches up with one of them that, may have any
I'll look
specialties.
at, why don't we put up a survey too? That would be a good idea. If we could put a survey up, do a Survey Monkey and send it out to the membership. Or if not even the membership, let's do a Survey Monkey and just send it out to everybody that's on our
Mailing list.
feed and basically say, this is what ideas we have. Do you have vendors and something that would be good for this type of topic? I think that might be a good idea is we do a Survey Monkey. My experience in the past is you might get 10% that respond, but even 10% would be good. Communications, I mean, we need communications because part of the reasons why this is a light attended meeting is we need to get communications out there quicker so people are ready for the meeting. The vendor that's out there for next month, I don't have it memorized in my mind. I can look it up, but it's basically, we need to get him, put that presentation out there so people come to this. And it's gonna be here next month, and it's gonna be the same time. The other thing is, we've actually asked people have questioned, we used to be 2 to 4, we changed it to 3 to 5 because some people, their bosses wanted them to go home, go back to the office, that ended at 4. Is 3 to 5 a good scenario? Do we need to, would it be better if we had it later? Would it be better if we went back to the original? Problem is, if you go later, part of the reason that ITT Tech works so good is most of their classes are at night.
For me personally, I'm a little bit biased, but I'm driving in from Des Moines, so 3 to 5 is perfect for me. By the time I'm done with the morning, I jump in the car and they show up, but
I prefer later.
how late?
Well, I'd like to be, I'm at home before 6, so 4.
4 to 6?
Mhm.
And that'd be fine with me too.
I don't, like I say, that might be a problem with this location.
Yeah.
We'd have to check with
The
ITT Tech.
location isn't permanent. And I can't help but imagine that there are a lot of people who are stuck at their desks until at least 4:30.
I think there's actually a lot
They
more
can't-
facilities that become available at 5 anyhow.
Yeah, just different facilities.
I wouldn't want it to become a night meeting though.
I mean, that's
Well, I wanna be
Mine-
home for dinner.
my personal experience with meetings that are night. Most of the groups that I used to belong to that had night meetings no longer are groups no more. And the ones that are afternoon meetings seem like they work best for most people. I don't know, like I say, for me, it don't matter. Cause I'm semi-retired anyhow.
On the subject of content, when we were talking internally on the board about sponsorship, there was the question about not getting too commercial, and I think I had brought it up based on my experience at Security Congress, that there were plenty of vendors that were willing to part with, cash sponsorship funds to have a opportunity to talk. And it was kind of to address Matthew's interest in doubling or tripling the membership dues. So that we had some money in the coffers. So I don't know that we spend a lot of money on anything other than the bank account, with the monthly fees. And I'd like to see more internally developed content with occasional presentations from sponsors.
Yeah.
And so, I know we need to work on getting volunteering, going, but if someone can talk about a project they've worked on at work and what the challenges were and how they got through them, that would be more interesting to me than having somebody stand in front of me and give me the same presentation that's available on their website, on YouTube, at the last conference I was just at, the last place they were sponsoring. All of them have an aspect of a sales pitch to them, and all of them are a little bit boring, and none of them really tell me what my peers are having for challenges, just what the sales guys want me to believe. So I'm kind of opposed to the continuous sponsorship. I'd like to see it maybe 4 times a year as revenue / a break, and have, the other 4 times a year be somebody here presenting, and I guess the rest of the social.
I had pitched to, and I maybe kind of brought this up last time, but I had pitched to Matthew before his exit to do a roundtable on just security, border security design. And he nuked it. He said, no, you've got to give us the whole presentation, and then we'll discuss it at the board. I'm like, I'm not wasting my time unless I know we're going to do this.
I mean,
That's kind of where we went back this month to an open discussion.
Yeah, so my thought process, we do it as a whiteboard, and we kind of,
Yeah.
walk through it and say, what have you done in the past? What are the positives? What are the negatives? And I would think we could do each of that with each domain. And it's, in some ways, you get a best practice out of it, at least in your head, if not on paper. And in other ways, it's just like, hey, US Bank messed this up and why?
Right.
Right.
Which is what I'm
That's as helpful as anything else.
Yeah, I'm interested in why Target failed. I'm not from here, so I really don't care if people get irritated, by talking about their fails. Because that actually, for me, outside of your territory, that gives me things to discuss with my customers and, that they know about. So I'm excited about, that's the only reason I'm part of this group is because I get to hear all you guys' nightmare stories that we all have.
Maybe we turn around and, I'm sorry, this is off subject a little bit.
Let's,
Maybe we turn around and have more of these type meetings and have a sponsor. The problem is with why we brought sponsors in is our finances, the bank fees was eating up everything we were dealing with. And we're not an incorporated, not-for-profit of any sort, not tax exempt, because the filing fees were such we didn't have the cash to even file properly to be a
I thought that's what the money that came from ISC squared was supposed to cover.
What money from ISC squared?
Well, they offered to every one of the home chapters,
New
$500
chapters were
bucks.
formed, it was like $400.
Yeah, that they were getting, and that was supposed to cover for that.
50 pens and
Yeah,
pens.
but that
Which
fee
they
was supposed
won't
to.
even sell the chapters at a discount, by the way. So if anybody's curious why we don't have pens anymore, it's
Yeah, it
'cause
doesn't matter.
who's gonna pay $4.95 to give you?
Yeah, that money was supposed to cover,
You know.
that money that they supposedly gave to the chapters was supposed to cover the filing fees if you were gonna incorporate and become, legal and safe.
Well, maybe we look at that this year and deal with, you wanna make a note of that we maybe deal with. We're paying $8 a month in bank fees. When you're $20 membership a year, and then you have social events where you're going out of your pocket on social events.
Social events, we should have the vendors do those.
That's one of the things
Yes.
you need vendors for is social events.
We can find vendors that'll buy you drinks, that's not a problem.
You weren't here for the RSA presentation when they were talking about the Terracotta Network.
oh, I was.
That was a vendor presentation
It was.
that was definitely different. It wasn't project oriented, it was definitely a report on current information related to intelligence and related to threats.
Yeah, I like that one.
That might have been
a really great presentation.
I may have been for that, but
I don't think you were.
I actually, a vendor gets in front of the room and I always tune out. I was here last month and I was really shocked at how poor the turnout was.
That
I
was the
think-
RSA one,
You were.
when we were in the other room.
I was probably in the back of the room in disbelief that we had more vendor participation than we did membership.
Yeah, RSA turned out in force.
And we need to turn that on, and that's why we need a communications chair, so that we get the communications out in front of them. And why we need the Twitter feed and the LinkedIn feed that's there. Because if we get the other option is we just go around and blast and just start a new Twitter and a new LinkedIn, but everybody that's signed up, it's like,
Is this a second group, is this a third group, is part of the same?
so that's the problem you run into with that. And what other feeds do we need? Do we need a Facebook page? But I'm not a
No.
Facebook fan myself.
LinkedIn page, Twitter feed. If we set up new ones, well, people just gotta move. How hard is it? We send out a group email and say we've got new Twitter feed, new LinkedIn account, and here they are. And
That's
you
what,
know, and
like I
some
say,
people sign up on them. That we've got enough people signed up on Eventbrite based on the amount of the amount of announcements that come to me from Eventbrite. It looks like that's working okay. So we just send it out through our normal email channels, and if it's LinkedIn and Twitter, I'll set them up tomorrow.
What is the normal email channel? Cause
We have like a MailChimp account.
okay, cause I seem to remember 6 months ago signing up on something that the website said to sign up for, and I don't remember getting anything, so I'll have to, is it on the webpage? You can find out.
Yeah, well, Eventbrite probably is what you're thinking about.
Okay.
Do you get the communication
Events.
about the group?
No, I look at the website and look at the
Oh.
calendar and go, oh, okay,
Okay.
there it is, I'll put it on my work calendar.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think anybody's maintaining that calendar right now, so.
That's
which is
not,
part of the reason.
that's not true.
It's partially being maintained.
All right, then, who is supporting that calendar now?
Calendar's a Google Calendar. Anyone can
Yeah,
make a submission.
that's a what answer. I wanna, who is,
I have the ability,
okay.
Mike has the ability, there's a couple people
Where
on
is the
on the
Google
list.
Calendar? Is it the
That's
one
just it,
off
you've
the?
gotta know how Google Calendars work. It's there, it's available in your calendar, you go other calendars, you can view, when you add a new appointment, you've got the option to copy to, and there's a drop down
We'll
list of
have to get it
calendars.
offline and deal
It's
with
a
it.
technology training for,
I have
anybody
not-
who wants to help administer it can help administer it. But I've heard during board meetings that we wanna get that calendar off the website. I'm thinking, oh, that's the only thing on the
It's the only
website
thing,
that's got any value.
Well, I mean, having that on the website, having it on the,
It's fantastic. I travel and I love being able to drop in.
having
other
a,
meetings.
having a lot of stuff on there is great. But what I think our website ought to do also is highlight the meeting that's coming up and what
Our
events.
meetings, because that's where we're
This
doing
is
a,
starting to sound like a
quite honestly,
replay
a
of the board
shitty
meeting.
job. Well, it is. We're doing a
This
shitty
isn't a
job of
board meeting.
maintaining our own website, and it comes down to, the person who is going to do it doesn't know HTML, and the site requires raw HTML knowledge in order to maintain. Bob's had the suggestion of using WordPress. I think something that's easy to maintain would be great. WordPress scares me a little bit because of security and plugins.
There's some nice security plugins that
But,
I've got them running.
I can't update the website because I'm not a LastPass user, and that's a whole nother, we'll take that as a board meeting discussion, but,
They just got bought. LastPass just got bought.
Yeah.
Is that also a Dell company?
Log me in.
It's a good question. Yeah, actually, Log Me In bought them, if you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, which makes me wonder if I want to change off.
But from my standpoint, we need some, of those things that are there, probably the number one thing we need is someone to help us out with communications. And once we get the website up and get all the communications out, that pushes the communications out there. And then bugs us to get the communications done. 'Cause when did you guys get to see the email blast that was like Sunday? It didn't go out till Sunday,
Maybe.
which is not enough time. Part of it's my fault, and I'll take the blame, but we need a communications person that's really pushing us. to
Oh, I
get it
have,
done.
I have a suggestion along those lines. As, when I was elected to the secretary spot, I was told, be careful, don't take on too much, blah, blah, blah. Well, taking notes at a board meeting isn't that much. Okay, I got that all done in about 45 minutes yesterday, so I have all the background and website design and name. I'll do the communications, so
Okay,
I'll just do it. It's not that hard, and I have experience in all the different platforms, and we'll just go, if Matthew's not giving us back those things, we'll just create some new ones.
okay,
All right.
That's all.
okay.
Do we know, before we leave the website, do we know why it was unavailable?
If Scott would tell me,
DNS?
would give me the credentials to log into GoDaddy, if the site would be been done. Okay, sorry, Scott, wherever you are.
Why, it's in
Bugs
LastPass,
got-
which I
No,
don't
it's
use.
not LastPass.
Okay, well, I wouldn't know.
Well, I don't know if it is or not. The LastPass stuff that I had shared to me just gets me into the Google stuff that we got going on, so.
I mean, the only reason we use LastPass is it's a way to share logins for people, to give them access to the same access. I mean, we can just give out the passwords and login credentials like I did to Jonathan now on the Google Docs page, so he can check.
We followed on the way home. Shouldn't have said that.
But
Alright,
like I
well-
say, LastPass doesn't have to be the answer. I mean, we can just physically give you the,
Well, we can move on from that, cause that's our decisions to come up with, at least come up with ideas. So Mike, I don't know if you had any reports, I think we kinda got over everything. Do
sorry,
you have any other report as president?
not now. That's it for me.
Okay.
I'm not gonna announce the other thing.
I know Jonathan wanted to talk a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'll let
Yeah,
Jonathan talk.
I've,
I don't really report either, so.
I've kicked in here with the group to work with the education initiatives, and that is pretty broad. Want to keep on getting people who are in colleges and universities in the area interested in coming. I also look to a younger age group as well, because people, once they're in college, they're already kind of down the career path enough, they're not necessarily thinking as openly about it. But there's a group that I wanted to highlight. You can kind of go back to, it's your first day on your first job, and you come in and there's all these computers, and your job is to make sure they're secure. And very well. Go through that thought process. A simulation of that kind of experience is exactly what the Cyber Patriot National Youth Cyber Education Program does in their annual competitions. The teams have already been formed for this year. The competitions start in November, kind of the preliminaries and working its way up to nationals. But they piloted this back in 2009 with 8 teams over just all of Florida. They got over 2,100 teams now in all 50 states, and they've given out $250,000 of scholarships in the past 5 years. What they're really trying to do is working on a national technical workforce and people that are stronger in the science, technology, engineering, math disciplines to get those young people. It's mainly high school. They have different divisions. There's like a junior ROTC, CAP, National Sea Cadet group that competes separately. And they even have a middle school tier for these competitions. So they're sitting down with virtual machines, and they have instructions. Okay, here's the situation, you need to go and do this. So they have to know how to do that. As the teams practice, then that they'll have coaches who will take care of a lot of the sign-up, logistics, communication. What they really need in addition to that is technical mentors, local IT professionals who can come in and show them how to do the stuff, give them the background, and maybe talk a little bit of realism in the things that are done only in a kind of a simulated way. And I think, just as role models and as people in the industry, get them even more excited about what actually happens, real life situations, all the things that we can share that aren't necessarily. So you can, I have some information here about becoming a volunteer for Cyber Patriot. It's a fairly simple process to join. They will do a background check before you come in and work for the organization. And then they can pair you up with a local team or more than one if you want to. And the commitment's very flexible. But I think it's a great program.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Flags here.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Okay, group discussion. I took some time and just came up with some topics that I think are going to be important in 2016. Not that they're not important now, but they are. So we're doing top security concerns for 2016. So one of the big ones we've been facing is encryption fails. What have we seen in the last 2 years? SSL v3, TLS 1.0. So we're kind of going with what's going to be next.
1.1.
1.1, probably, right? And I don't know, are we seeing new encryption coming forward? New ways to encrypt?
Anyone have any friends at the NSA?
I mean, Google's using what, Cha-Cha something now in their browsers, right? So there's some other encryption algorithms floating around out there. SHA-1 is recently more attackable, although it's still, I think, theoretical. But the
official word is abandon it now.
well,
Right.
but the CAB, or is it the CAB? It's the people who do the certificates are right now, I think, voting on extending issuing SHA-1 certificates for another year. Because some big vendors
2017.
for 2 years. Because people can't adopt changes fast enough. I mean, we just got a PGP key from one of our vendors, and it's a 1024-bit key that never expires. I'm like, unfortunately, I'm not security manager at my company, so it's like, I'll make a note of this for when eventually we get to this discussion in the committee meetings. But I don't think the new fails are any worse than the old fails.
Well, until we get off old fails, I don't think.
People don't.
That's what you would do. I know the browsers are trying to push them, so Chrome is already warning people if you are using or accessing a website with a SHA-1.
When's the
Yeah.
current SHA-1 expiration? Is it June 16th?
It's supposed to be,
2010.
wasn't it?
2010 was the original SHA-1 expiration.
Wow.
And it's still effectively the official expiration. It was going to expire earlier than that, and they set it to 2010, and then it got set back again and again and again.
Well, and PCI will fail you if you run SSL v3 or TLS 1.0. So I know, for if you're doing PCI, there's talks that the browsers in like Q1, Q2 of 2016, the major ones, Chrome and Firefox, will not negotiate on those protocols anymore at all.
No way to disable it so they can do backward.
Right, they're not, yeah, they're going to completely disable it, so it will not dump down to those old protocols.
That's good.
Assuming people update their browsers.
What do you mean? I'm still running 6.
It's always been good.
So,
Actually, to tell the truth, my son went for AT&T,
What I've been
and they just
battling
went
is
off of
disabling-
programs that required IE6.
Yes.
What I've been battling is I have it disabled in my browsers, but I've got all these Internet of Thing devices around that don't have updates available for them, and they are 1.0 or.
And who knows when they're gonna have updates for them.
Well, they're not
If
going to.
ever.
Okay,
If
they're not
ever.
gonna have
I mean, most of the apps that are on mobile devices do not handle the SSL encryption properly, or
No.
TLS.
And it's partly the phone lifespan too.
Right.
I'm stuck in a situation where I have a phone, it serves my needs, it's what, I'm not gonna buy a new one. But I'm running, I don't know if it's ice cream sandwich, I mean, it's an old version of Android and it doesn't support any
Right.
current browser technology.
I mean,
does.
the phone companies won't push out all the new updates to the Androids as they come.
Actually, they just changed that 6 weeks ago. They all have committed to doing it on a regular basis. If you buy a new phone,
Right.
Right.
Well, that's the point.
because of the
Stage fright.
stage right attack
Yeah.
on Android, which finally laid to bear the same thing that both Linux and Microsoft have known for 15 years, that if you don't patch an operating system, someone's going to find a nasty bug. So I'm surprised they got away with it that long.
Yeah.
But that being said, I absolutely understand my father probably bought his last Android update a year ago, and he'll probably never update after this. Now, granted, he's 80, you're probably not.
Probably.
At least he's using a phone.
Well,
I'm just feeling that age after trying to connect to the net.
Exactly.
the scary thing with that is now we're using our phones to pay for things. I'm not. I will not do that.
No, and I don't go to any secure sites on my phone anymore.
Right, but
not-
there are people that do. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
everyone thinks you do that.
Well, it's secure because there's a padlock in the corner.
On my Android, it showed
Done.
up and it was like, hey, Android pay. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be using that.
A lot of the problem is with most of the Android phones too, is the apps. You might have a browser that only supports the proper thing, but people will write an app for it and they will write their own SSL or TSL or whatever it is connection for it, so that just because you're there, it doesn't mean that the app that they're using is going to use it. And it's accessing the same websites, even though it's an app that you deal with the from. So that it's always a problem with these type of devices. You could
So
always,
more and more mobile devices.
and the other thing is what was it? The answer was the iPhone, but that they just had a major breach recently where they got hacked.
So what do you do as a company to protect your company data and still allow people to use their phones?
Landlines.
I mean, I'm gonna say something not on the sheet, but you have to know what your company data is.
And it's not only,
Which I can't get any traction. I mean, I'm the DBA. Security is sort of a thing that I got thrown on the committee, so now I'm like, okay, well, it's more interesting and I might want to change jobs, but at the same time, I can't get anyone to own the data. I can't get anyone to say, how should you protect this data versus this data?
That's a huge problem. I have that problem at work too.
Yeah, so when it's like, what data can you put on the device? It's, well, who decides?
Someone has to own the data. That's where you have to come down to and say, we can't at work protect or know what to protect or how to protect it or who should have access if someone doesn't take responsibility for it. And it can't be IT. IT cannot own all the data. It's ridiculous. There's no way. So at some point, someone has to own the data.
Yeah, and that's why you just allow access, not the data to move. That's one way of dealing with it.
Yes, but then we run into big data and analytics. Everything in my job, everyone's, I want data, I want data, I want data, and we're gonna put it in our big database. We're gonna report on it. We're gonna let it sit there because we might want to report on it. So we're gonna move it.
We're gonna take it out of Excel, send it to cloud providers you don't know you have.
Right, because they have better fun pictures
Yes.
to make my data look pretty. And do we know what's there?
One way of looking at data is not as an asset, but as toxic waste of industrialized information technology.
Right.
Handling it similarly that has to be properly disposed of, has to be properly managed.
Say, I have a question.
Put it in.
Can you define for me
Corey
what
does.
you mean by somebody's gotta own the data? I'm not sure what that concept's like wrapped around.
Sure. So even if we're just talking like file servers, so you have a file server and a share, who owns that data underneath there? Who is responsible for who has access?
Oh,
So it's more,
who would you like to have be responsible?
right,
And when
No,
that
no,
person,
that's what I'm asking, what's your answer to who owns data?
a business owner,
so when you get fired as the manager,
right,
who's gonna take over your job, and are they, if you said, hey, I got 20 people working for me, Bob needs access to this, Cassie this, and Janet this, you get canned?
Yeah.
You need to make sure as the security team that whoever replaces you, even if they make decisions that are different, that it's their responsibility to make those decisions. It's not us in security who does not even know what that data is to be the data manager or the security manager even for that, because this is, it's been that argument for 25 years of how do we push down to the department secretary the job of keeping track of when people leave, when people go. And we went down that rabbit trail of universal LDAP, where when you get hired, you're automatically added to AD, you're automatically added to the email system, that was POP3, you're automatically added to the 20 line of business applications, and all the security is based on your role-based security. And have you ever run into anybody who's gotten that right yet?
I've come close. This discussion is bringing up memories of the comment. Somebody came to me and said, Eric, you're being anti-team because I wanted an individual. I don't want to hear that, these 12 people are going to manage the permissions of this collection of stuff. And
Sure. But there's a problem, you just fire them all.
This component, give me an owner, and that owner can then say who's going to have privileges. But if you want to delegate the authority to add and remove this, you can do that, but it's your responsibility. Give me an individual that's going to be responsible for the decisions of a team. Feel free to delegate as you will, but I want one person to pin a tack in their head when I've got a question about something.
right, because what happens if you scan it and you
Because
find PII?
Right.
Who are you gonna talk to about it?
You delegate to a team and one guy says yes and one guy says no, and there's exactly 6 of them and they're evenly split. Now
That's why there's only 13
I don't
on
want the
every committee.
decision. Give me one guy who's gonna make the decision. I'm not getting involved in that fight. One individual.
Well, in general, it's better that security doesn't get directly involved in that fight at all, because we are not the data owners. It's not our intellectual property that we're responsible for giving them options, but we don't know that engineer has this $1 million piece of information that he just created.
I absolutely agree, but then I hear it's anti-team.
Well, I mean,
It's just the opposite. It's pro team, because you're pushing the responsibility on the team. It's their problem. They become part of the solution.
Well, security's there to audit and enforce.
Attitude.
We're not,
We set policies and
some
we let
policies.
we set policies and we let others make sure that, or actually execute those policies.
Right. you're there to enforce and audit and ensure that everyone is meeting those policies. And that the data is what it's supposed to be, or when we have a question about what the data is, you having a person to go ask.
So when you run up in to a management team and they have the opposite opinion, like, hey, I hired you to be the security lady, do your job. How do you get past the understanding of them that you have a complete misunderstanding of what security means and what the function is?
I run into that all the time.
And so what have you done in the past, either positive or negative, to get past that issue? Because that's something that can be a what do they call it, a resume generating event. Yeah.
Career impact decision.
I mean, so because it can go both ways. I mean, you can look like the hero of the IT world suddenly because everyone suddenly gets it, or you're on the street, as a consultant again, which is never a problem. The next day, making more money from working for somebody else. What have you done in the past that's worked?
To explain what security really is, how it really works, be patient.
Yeah. Communicate
often, early and often. More communication is usually better than less. Be patient.
And that's one of the reasons that we get accused all the time of security costs so much. Well, it costs so much because you guys are so stupid.
Or it would cost less if you wanted less security. So
right.
How little security do you want? And that's I don't use that as a way to ridicule someone. It's really how much security do you want? What can you afford to lose, and how much are you willing to pay now versus later? Because those are reasonable trade-offs.
Ultimately, we are an insurance policy, and the amount of insurance that you buy is all based on your pocketbook. What is the value to you? And that's what was the calculation they faced in the CSP class where you're trying to figure out the cost of a downtime incident? They've thrown it out the door, because no one listens to it. Because when you tell them that every time, yeah, so basically you tell them it's every 10 minutes you're down, it's $1 million loss. You're gonna get thrown out of the office, right? It's that kind of thing. And the facts are still the case. If you're down for an hour and you have 1,000 people on the payroll, this is your loss. But no one wants to hear that. How do we get past that?
That's not capital.
Huh?
That's expense. That's not capital. It doesn't really count.
And that should be something they should be bringing up. They should say, I'm losing this much money every minute. I need to be back up.
And they will when they're down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The problem is, if you don't go down, why would I spend the money?
Yes.
Our job is to plan ahead for that insurance policy that hopefully never gets used.
But also means paying the appropriate amount in that insurance policy. Some insurance policies you pay a lot for because they're existential risks. That's why people usually have house insurance. Because if they lose their house, they lose a lot of stuff. So even though most people's houses don't burn down, they still get house insurance.
I only have mine because my loan makes me have it. Otherwise, I could skip it.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
I don't have health insurance for that reason. I hate it well. Just something I'm not going to do. I'll take the risk.
So do you
So
take
you
the
don't
risk
have a
without,
major illness.
I'll die. It's fine.
you take the risk and just do cyber insurance and who needs a security department?
That's the
Except
question.
What was the recent court case where the
Yeah.
insurance?
Due care, have to take due care or reasonable, reasonable efforts.
Due diligence?
Due diligence. And we have to have due diligence to protect the data as a company, or your insurance doesn't matter.
Right.
They won't cover you. They'll tell you didn't do it right. So,
Yeah, you store gasoline in your house and it burns down because, well, you smoked your gasoline, they're not gonna cover it.
right,
Well, it's like being at fault in any other claim.
Like if if you're fixing your gas line and you don't hook it up right and gas gets all in your house burns down because it blew up, they ain't gonna cover you.
A lot of insurance companies specifically exempt any data loss coverage. Are there many companies right now that you have dealt with that are actually willingly insuring for that?
Cyber insurance, yeah, definitely. There are companies out there. I don't know the details of the equivalents, but they definitely exist. But they are specific special policies.
Right.
The insurance companies have their own due diligence, so
They made sure that they exempt that. So that's why I asked. I haven't run into the companies, the insurance companies I work with are actually selling insurance. So they're actually doing it themselves, and they're like, yeah, we'll never insure that because we can't prove that us, the security guys, are actually going to do the due diligence and actually protect us, because we can't control the
Don't they
security
do
people.
an
We
audit,
don't do it.
don't they do an audit before if you're gonna,
a lot of them, anything with cyber insurance, will do an audit
But the point is, they exempt all cyber, any data loss, they won't insure in the first place. So you say, hey, this
Illicit
is a
cyber insurance that's and it's usually called cyber insurance for incidents. Although there are incidents that do get excluded, just like house insurance that doesn't cover hurricane, for example, or flooding, and especially flooding here in the Midwest.
Right.
Well, there was an article recently I read that said that the cyber insurance is such a new thing that they still haven't really gotten their arms around it to understand what the costs really are. So people will take out a policy that, you know, is going to cover them for $250,000, and they say, we're good.
And it might not.
And then they have an incident that,
And they won't cover them
Oh.
because they're very specific.
yeah, no,
What
$250,000's
has to
wrong. I mean, they're insuring for hundreds of millions, but then it ends up costing $1 billion.
Yeah, like Target Corporation, which did have cyber insurance, and it is covering part of their losses, but nowhere near even most. It was
Home Depot was the case in point in this one, that they're on, that the costs, because they had so many class action things come at them, their costs are just astronomical.
Plus, they were probably the Target at least tried to make things right. Office Depot knew about the problems they had and they just ignored them for a long time. I mean, they were still running XP.
Whatever happened to their slogan, let's do this?
they did it.
They did it.
Well, they did it. They did it wrong.
Let's
It's
take
not
on this
security.
risk.
Yes, with enthusiasm.
Who's had increased rise in companies wanting to use SaaS providers? Because I have.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's,
had an interesting discussion with my spouse about training on cloud security. And
Oh,
he's like,
I laugh every. I'm like, cloud security certificate. That's interesting.
we did a project a few months ago, and you know, I had to explain the math on the nines on the downtime. It's like, okay, this is how many hours of downtime this means. Do you really want that? And you know, it's and it's in the contract.
What were the contracts they offering for nines? 3 nines? 2 nines?
99.9 or 99.99, I think, if you paid lots more.
Usually 3.
So 5 nines is 5 minutes of planned downtime
This
per
was like
year.
a half an hour per month.
Yeah.
Of unplanned was allowed.
I know what you're doing.
I got a question. Is that software as a service or is that security as a service?
Either software.
I mean, software as a service, there's a lot of my customers are doing SaaS. They're going with that type of, or even platform, or even moving in their whole ball of wax up to, you know,
Amazon.
Right.
Azure.
Yeah.
And
So
they're basically just having nothing left on in-house.
so
But they are doing that, but as far as security as a service, you're still dealing with the security issue, because even when you put the data up there, it's
who's
still,
gonna protect it?
you know, even if you don't, you still, depends upon what the contract is, but who doesn't, whether they protect it or not, is a matter of, you know, it's still ultimately your responsibility.
It is. It's ultimately the SaaS provider's responsibility too. So my team's responsible for completing SaaS evaluations. So whenever someone in the company wants to use a cloud provider or some sort of software as a service, make them fill out a form. And you would be insanely surprised the number of companies that go, well, we're on Amazon. Amazon has all these security certificates. It's great. We use Amazon. We use Amazon's IDS or Amazon's IPS. And Amazon will tell you when there's a problem, it's your problem. They will try and help you. But if you have a data breach, they're going to say, sorry, our infrastructure is secure. Your software is not.
Well, that's the case of pretty much every cloud provider. I mean, that they don't control what you put on their crap.
True. But they control how they protect what we put up there.
Will they accept
Well,
liability for their failure in their operating systems, though? I don't think they will. If you
No.
look at the contract, they probably don't actually accept liability.
Oh, they won't accept liability at all.
So how do you pitch cloud services as being a secure platform? Because this is the way I pitch to my customers. I said, every time I look, if I ever look at a cloud, there's always some rain. So how do you expect it to be dry underneath the cloud? I get laughs from that. Not from you guys. But so the question is, how does anyone with a straight face pitch a cloud implementation of anything as being secure for any kind of intellectual property? whether that's Dropbox or,
How is it less secure than hosting it internally, just out of curiosity? If the application's the risk, if the OS is the risk, what's the difference whether you're doing it yourself or whether you've got a large infrastructure provider whose entire business model is around keeping that network running, who's got skills specific to the hardware, who's this day in, day out, they're supporting hardware. I think often they can do that better than a smaller company.
And how many people were here for the Microsoft presentation?
Azure?
Yeah, they were basically telling you on, they will help you and where it is. Just because you put it on the cloud doesn't make it more secure, but they will help you with it and they will deal with it with you and tell you how to go with it. But it's still ultimately your responsibility. If you put your server on the cloud, it's your responsibility to make that server secure.
Couple things that I'm concerned about as a data center planner. Let's say it's Google, let's just pick on that. How do I know point blank, no matter whether it's in the contract or not, how do I know that they have done the due diligence to do the background investigation on every one of their employees? Like I will do, or our team will do in our data center, say it's an insurance company. Question 1. 2, if they can back it up, it's their data, not yours.
Because
Yes.
who knows what they do with their backups?
Right, and if they can restore it, it's not your data anymore, it's theirs. So how do we pitch, or do we even bother pitching, a intellectual property secure cloud service? Because it's not our data anymore, it's theirs. So you ask, how is that more or less secure than ours? Well, simply from the standpoint of it's within our borders. We have our security guards, physical security on the outside. We have our virtual security guards on the inside. And we can do that. The virtual security guards we can manage remotely, at least partially. But it's a virtual machine, so they could shut down your firewall for you and go extract the data all they want. Is it in Amazon's interest to steal your data? No, but are there plenty of people that work for Amazon that are interested in stealing your data? Maybe.
Well, the thing of it is it's Amazon's. I personally, I think, I'm just prejudiced, but I think Azure is a little bit more secure than the other ones. But I wouldn't trust Google with anything myself. Because
But
even
if you use the internet and you have email, you have to trust somebody at some point.
yeah, I mean, but it's
Well, you don't, or you don't. Or
You know,
you
you give me-
have to.
it's
so-
encryption. I
You
mean,
inbound, you hold your email, if you're, let's say you're a bank, and you
Right.
don't want to do the cloud-based email solution. So you hold your email server internally. You put the automatic scans to say, I'm looking for anything that looks like a MasterCard number or a credit card or a bank number or anything
Right.
in, so that if that happens to hit an outbound email, it's immediately stopped, shoved into your must encrypt queue.
Oh, I agree.
And you can do some of those things with Gmail. You can do some of those things with Microsoft Live, I think. But
But really, once it leaves your borders of your company,
Well, once it
you're not.
leaves your-
yeah, the trick is you don't let it leave, right?
Oh, I agree.
It's that's the DLP thing that you're mentioning, right?
Well, actually, I think they've solved that. Wells Fargo has started to implement that, where they use the equivalent of a zip core service, so the stuff never leaves them. You're basically sending an encrypted email, which is nothing more than a browser
Portal.
request to come.
They're
to their
just starting
server.
to roll that out at Wells Fargo?
I think they've had it for a little while.
It just shocks me just because
But it's
the
like-
hospital industry's been doing that for well over 10 years. Because they had to.
But there's a big difference. The difference is Zipcore comes in a couple different flavors. One is it uses their proprietary algorithm to decide what to encrypt and what not to, even if it's host-based, because they have a couple flavors where you can send it out. And I've questioned that format because when it's in transit before they encrypt it, now what's the point? So if you have a Zipcore box internally sitting right inside, or it would be right outside your email server, so that it encrypts on the outbound before it leaves your network, then I believe that works better. However, there's still a problem with that, which is it relies on their the tug and pull between, if you send somebody a very innocuous email, like say you're a medical clinic and you send an 80-year-old woman or a man who barely has any computer skills, they will not get that email. So it's that pull and tug between, do you insist on it or do you not? So what they did is they built that proprietary algorithm to say, okay, if you're just going to send somebody, a senior citizen, an appointment reminder, it won't get encrypted. But if there is the pattern of a social security number and you're verifying something or somebody sends a stupid email, then supposedly it encrypts it automatically. And then, of course, there's the manual override. Well, we've tested it a few times. It doesn't always work. In the Wells Fargo model, from what I could tell from a couple groups in St. Paul, whatever email system or platform that they're generating their emails from, everything is portal-based. It means there is no mandatory. It's generic text is coming to you about nothing important. But the point was that the email you receive is nothing more than a delivery notice that you can then log into their portal.
Please pull this mail that someone has sent to you.
So when I looked into that very superficially, it was nothing more than portal-based email. So the answer is the email is never leaving, or
Right.
it implies it never leaves it. But how many people are going to do that? And you get the feeling that
How
that's
many
a,
customers will appreciate that?
And they really don't, because that's especially if you want to pull that up on your phone, that may or may not even be possible.
but you know what? They're one of the few that are not giving it that choice. But the other thing I wanted to say, since I haven't been here for a while, is has anybody talked about the difference between security as a service and then meaning what the different flavors or interpretations are? Because I see sometimes people think of security as a service as being a service that you're selling to guarantee along with the cybersecurity insurance. And so analogous to the cybersecurity insurance that you're talking about, I've seen some that really are there as an insurance policy, and others are there as kind of like, it's not really ensuring the loss of your data, but it's ensuring that if you have a breach and you don't have the IT skill, it's kind of like, we will provide you the backbone, and if you're HIPAA regulated, we will give you all of the mandatory notification. It's a one-stop shop. It doesn't mean that you're not liable for it. It just means that all you have to do when you suspect you have a breach is put a call in. Somebody shows up, they investigate, they do the forensics, they do the notification. If you're large enough, the breach is big enough, they'll do the PR to the media, et cetera, et cetera. That's what you're buying, which is different than the liability that even if you had that insurance, you did everything, you could still be sued for the breach. And so I want to go back to security as a service, which is definitely see a growing trend as security as a service, meaning they're selling you the service or the security services, meaning that when you purchase a fairly sophisticated firewall, instead of you having to have the cost of ownership on site, what you basically do is can buy the security as a service, which is essentially a piece of a NOC, and then you send your secure feed as secure as you're able to.
That's the Dell SecureWorks model.
Yes, very similar to that.
Bring your firewall, and we don't really care what it is. We'll put our guys, quote unquote, guys on site 5,000 miles away, and we'll manage it for you.
But I'm seeing a lot of other, for example, for difficult applications, and also in one very, very, very large organization here, they've taken some of their cybersecurity tools and they've actually outsourced that as a security service because they don't want night shifts. So they basically can run some of their bigger tools off of a day shift, an 8 to 5 shift. What am I calling that? First shift? First shift is the word I was looking for. And by running it off a first shift and having a security as a service NOC in place, basically you're buying a piece of their NOC service. Then when people show up, anything that wasn't really, really critical, it can be dealt with and it shows up in their queue. So that's a lot different than what people were asking maybe, as when you buy security as a service, are you buying an insurance policy that this security service is guaranteeing? You can always find negligence in service, but that's different than negligence in a breach or data loss. I think the penalties are
I've yet
far,
to see
far
anyone that's willing to take that risk on.
No, I listened to it. I listened to an article on NPR, which still amazes me that they're doing it. But different flavors of articles mature, and that article that news report was specifically about some insurance companies now, because they cannot get ahead of the changes in cybersecurity, much less ensure that people are enforcing it, that they're going to bail out of it because it will bankrupt them. They do not want to get bankrupt.
Wow.
And actually, I've had that when I was doing contract work about a year and a half ago. The contingency on my contract was errors and omissions. And to be honest, I had to kind of fuzz code it because one person said, if you're doing PCI or HIPAA compliant work, you won't get a policy.
Right.
So I said, I'm just doing internal security consulting. And I just got it, knowing I had no choice. It was either do the work. And I don't really feel guilty about it, but it was definitely a red flag that the insurance industry was coming down. Really, you know, what is it?
Yeah.
It's a calculation if you can't. And so the NPR article reminded me earlier in this week that the reason why what do they call those people that do the calculations, the actuaries? The reason why the actuarians have such good profits on the things that go back 100 years ago is because that stuff doesn't change.
You know when you're gonna die.
Yeah, they know when it goes. Some of that data goes back 100 years, and I often joke around people and say, you know, when I was in IT infrastructure, we had an 18-month cycle. It means if you thought you knew one product like antivirus, 18 months later it was going to be antivirus and spyware, and then 18 months later it's going to be 0 day. And I say in cybersecurity, I joke around and say it's 6 months now. So how are the insurance companies supposed to keep up with that? It's going to be possibly what NPR was predicting. And that, again, once again, that discussion was very specific on the liability to prevent bankruptcy or financial loss if something was done, which to me was different than, and I didn't think the article was at all implying that it was security as a service. So I just want to throw that out there.
By the way, I looked it up. It's SECAS is where you abbreviate security as a service.
SECAS.
Yeah, so when you said SaaS, that's software as a service to have the rest of the industry.
Right.
That's why I brought up cloud providers, because that's what I thought you were describing that.
But I mean,
Oh, right.
Different
there's
issue.
a lot
Which
of
one is it?
companies, I mean, how many people here have SecureWorks? That's basically what they do is they're a software as a service, basically. They will send people on site, but they manage your security. They do it for a lot of small banks and credit unions and such. I know for a fact.
Can you define manage your security?
So Dell SecureWorks, their model is specifically around, you buy a firewall, somebody else will put it in. They will put a log box on your premise, and it will package up the logs and send them off to their NOC.
So they basically
They become your
their
NOC.
own software to sift through all the
Yep, to sift through your thing and hopefully find any anomalies, and then not necessarily do anything about it. Depends on how you license them or how you agree for it. But they'll notify you that yes, there was a problem, and maybe shut off the anomaly, but not correct the anomaly.
But in the basic package, it sifts through the syslog.
It's basically it's a log management and NOC
It
service.
prioritizes.
Yeah.
But their basic software would still prioritize.
Right.
And if you logged in on a regular basis, say at 8 a.m. in the morning for a shift, at least that's better than I don't have time to go through all these logs.
I got 100,000 pages of logs, and which one am I gonna hit?
So to me, that's a form of security as a service. I don't know what other people think.
Yes, and it meets the FDIC's requirement of having a 24-hour response team, which is why all the banks are doing it.
Right.
So all the ones that had 8 to 5 guys, they have 3 guys in their IT department for a small bank group. They now have 3 guys plus Dell SecureWorks because that's what does the beep checkbox.
Well, that's really still, isn't it, now?
Yeah, they've been Dell for a while.
For a number of years.
So then the other thing that I thought as you were talking, going back to security as service or cloud providers, is I've also started to deal with some local providers of backups to answer that question, which is a lot different than Iron Mountain, a lot of the big, they're essentially data centers anyways. And so one of the reasons when I was previously in infrastructure that I was able to push that was I had Township flat out say, we're not putting that anywhere. It's gonna go on this hard drive and that is it. I will take my old fashioned eyes and watch that thing every morning when I come in. And you know what? He was actually right. But then later on came along a more local based data center. So when people, they don't have to be computer people. They can ask very poignant, valid questions, and they can say, do you even know where that data is going? And yes, it goes into the 300 block of Marquette and it's downstairs and I walk the data center myself and they say, that's all I need to hear. How much does it cost?
And there's a difference between that kind of cloud provider and a Amazon Web Services. Because that kind of cloud provider is I'm buying rack space and the equipment in it is mine. That's just no different than buying a business down the street with a log.
But the most I've ever been asked about the local one, much less because they can research the big ones, less data on the local ones, is are they PCI compliant or are they HIPAA compliant? It's actually more HIPAA compliant. And all they basically do is fudge out a little letter that says, because you can't actually be HIPAA compliant.
There is no
such thing, right?
compliant.
You can be,
Right.
you can make the case because of the stringent dictations of the PCI Council, but not in HIPAA. It's so much interpretation. So you can say things like, yes, we've complied with our annual HIPAA risk assessment. And then what a lot of those a lot of the conversation around are we HIPAA compliant is, have they met the HSS minimum or FIPS minimum encryption standards built into their software? And some other things that I've advised them on is to adjust your software so that by default it is that level, not an option later on, because if people unknowingly install it. Other than that, how do you ever prove that? I mean, what are you going to do? Audit your provider? No. And Google, you can't even get a person on the phone half the time, if at times ever. So I don't know what the answer to that is, other than you go back to, this is nothing more than good old-fashioned trust in some respects. And if you can see it and breathe it and know, and if the person delivering you the services know that you're within a metropolitan, mile away to knock on their door if something bad happens, it's eluded me.
All that is a paid Google customer. I've always been able to pick up the phone and the service has been pretty good.
Yeah, actually, Google Apps for Business, they do answer, but if the non-paid, you'll never get a guy on the phone.
Like the watch on my wrist and the previous model, I had a technical problem with it and wasn't gonna screw around with trying to figure it out. I went into the portal, picked on the device I bought, said I want support, sure, call me, phone rang instantaneously, picked it up, hey, this watch doesn't seem like it's charging. You'll have a coupon code in your email that's valid for a replacement.
So that's their service,
so
give you a coupon for replacement.
Well, I went on the website, I got the email, I clicked on the link, I bought the same watch, this is like at 9 o'clock at night, I said overnight delivery, and I swear by 9 a.m. in the morning, FedEx is there with a new watch. So
Could I ask the-
while I slept, I got a replacement.
Can
we just step back for a moment and say this is a-
Exactly.
Pay
2 hours.
$8.
I just have to install the mobile app if I want to use it.
That's true.
Just need to take a moment here to say that this is a really weird world we live in.
Only now you notice it?
No, just every time I hear an example of that, I just think.
How many security people here use Android and how many use iPhones? Raise iPhones. We got,
Personal and work devices.
well, you got one of each?
You should. You should
I
have.
don't carry the work device though.
How many, I use Android.
I leave it under my keyboard.
I know the security holes in Android, and I figure I'm pretty much secure from where it is, but I don't load a lot of apps on mine. But I personally think Android has definitely gotten hit this year on a number of problems.
Well, I think that's
So
that's the
has
Mac versus PC problem. I mean, if you're talking worldwide, if I'm looking at number of devices, if I'm a hacker and I'm going to look at what is my biggest impact for the least amount of effort,
Yeah,
Right.
I'm going to hit the one that has 90% worldwide hit.
But that's why Max forever said, we don't get viruses.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
that's because no one cares
no one-
to
yep.
give you a virus.
No one writes for it.
Well, yeah, but when they start getting
Too late
into the
now.
Too late
teens,
now, they
when
have
they-
one.
yeah, but
That's
that
the
was
first
when
time.
they were only
Yeah.
4 to 5% of the penetration. When they got into the teens and when they
Right.
got the iPhones, started getting a lot more penetration. Now you
That's,
see people going after.
right, so that's what it is, like,
Yeah,
Like
but
you
what,
said.
90-10, if I can do the same work for 90% versus the same work for 10%, where would you go after? So I don't know that you can argue that one or the other is more secure than the other. It's just why attack that which is the small guy?
There's certain-
Unless it's a targeted attack. Let's say I know that this division of the military, which is my actual enemy, is using Android version 4.6.7.
then that's what you're.
I'm going to target that, but it's for a different reason other than
Yeah.
just it's Android. No, it's because I know it's held by the President of the United States.
But you're not gonna get past a targeted attack. A targeted attack.
Doesn't matter
will
what it is,
happen.
right.
It doesn't matter what it is.
It's a matter of time.
Right.
Can I ask a question about the PCI stuff? Because I know you went last week about it. Can we go back to the encryption level? What was the mandate that I'm trying to get out of you guys?
For PCI 3?
Yeah.
3.1?
Well, 3.1, yes.
3.1 is, you can't be on SSL at all, and you
3.1.
can be on TSL 1.0.
You can run TLS 1.1 and 1.2. You will fail your external scan.
Have they
And no
changed the HIPAA
back.
requirements at all? Because they've never said, and the HIPAA just says you must encrypt. They've never said,
HIPAA
a
has
minimum.
not changed as far as I know, but PCI DSS.
Right.
3.1 that came out in June.
they actually have actual standards.
Actually, HIPAA does refer to HSS, which is 256 right now.
Okay.
And I'd like
That
to-
was from the original standard.
I'd like to point
Because
out
the
that-
original standard didn't have
that
anything.
Compliance is useful, it's important, but TLS 1.1 and 1.2 are also insecure. It's just that there's nothing that
There's
they
nothing out there
replace
with
it.
the.
Yeah.
What have they hit against 1.1 and 1.2? What have they run into?
Similar attacks, I don't actually recall which specifically were, but they've been known insecure for some years, which is why TLS 1.3 has been in draft for a few years.
But not finished.
But it's not finished yet. But when it does get finished, sometime after that, when products start to actually implement it, then it's likely PCI and other standards will start to deprecate and even not allow TLS 1.1 and 1.2. And it's more complicated than that. It's not just the protocols, but it's also how the implementations are configured, such as Cypher suites, like SHA-1, for example.
Right.
So we have to aim for compliance and beyond. So keep both configuration of what's compliant in mind and also that what's compliant now is
Compliant.
known insecure already.
Compliance is not enough.
Yes.
Are you saying there's a difference between compliance and security?
Yes.
Aren't we the
That's why I
silly
have-
ones?
That's why I have an internal audit department and a security department.
So something I just heard, the only
Isn't
difference.
compliance like when you give the bully your lunch money?
Yes.
Yes.
Isn't that kind of the same thing?
Yeah, or
And security is when you figure out
How to-
where he can't find you.
or it's when you give the PCI auditing company their money.
Yeah.
Right.
But the thing I think is great is Target was compliant.
Yeah.
Well, has there been a single,
Certified compliance.
has there been a single
They were
PCI
compliant,
breach
right?
in the last 5 years where they have not been
Compliant.
pre-raised compliant, right?
Yeah.
Wait
Well,
18 months, I'll tell you.
They were instantly non-compliant when they got broken into.
That was a red eye.
Were they actually certified as non-compliant when that happened?
No,
They,
were
well,
compliant.
when PCI got around to it, yeah.
They actually,
I mean,
Certification is deprecated
yeah.
by a breach.
Something I heard
By proof.
today, the difference between compliance and security is politics. I thought that was a useful distinction. That they are different, it's the politics that makes them different.
Just because you're compliant doesn't mean you're secure.
Right.
It just means you've met certain.
It means compliance is political security.
Going back to the cost of security though, I mean, that's why if you look at many organizations, they choose, we want to be secure, but all we really want is to be compliant so we can check that box.
Except
Or all
Target's
we can-
case, well, it's not.
It was too late for them. I'm betting their first example was we need to be compliant.
Yeah, and they were
We don't really
compliant,
care,
right, up
you
until
know.
we got compromised.
Going to that next edge of actually making sure my heating and ventilation guy can't get to my point of sale system, why would I bother?
That's also looking at your alerts from your
Yeah,
your
that-
SIM and saying,
Right.
these actually mean something and saying, nah, we'll just ignore them.
It's having it.
Right.
They have the warning signs, but then you just,
Having an
that's,
auditor.
but that's the problem with the millions of events. I mean, that makes it, no sim is perfect in that case.
That's why a lot of the secure works for a lot of smaller companies, because they'll tell you what they think on it, and give you a little bit more guidance.
Right.
But, yeah.
The logs are there to help you figure out what happened afterwards.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's just like a security camera. They don't actually stop, they don't stop crime, they just tell you what happened afterwards.
Let's,
It does have its utility because if you as an organization can say very quickly, this is what data was exposed, you're in a lot better place than going, we don't know.
Exactly.
We have no idea.
And we haven't known for months.
We haven't known for months, and I don't know what you're talking about. Because the likelihood, or if you get breached, you're going to find out by the government, most likely. They're going to come knock on your door and say, hey, is this data yours?
If you read Krebs, you'll find out a week before the FBI shows.
Yeah,
who's
exactly.
who was a brokerage firm last week that the first they heard, that got breached, the first they heard of was when the FBI knocked on their door? Was it Merrill Lynch? What was it? I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember hearing it.
But whoever it was that got breached last week, the first they heard about it was, they've been breached for 2 or 3 years, but the
Yeah.
first they heard
Was
about
that
it was the
E-Trade?
FBI.
I don't recall, but this brings up an issue. It's not just the government has to notify them that they got breached. It's that the government isn't actually that great at it. It's not actually their job, and it still takes them a few years.
Oh, yeah.
So how about all those others where the government didn't detect it, or they did and they didn't notify them for any number of reasons, because there are probably cases where they don't for national security reasons, even valid ones. That's part of the problem we've got in the industry. This is how bad it is.
Well, I have a friend whose son worked at Stratford. How many people here remember what happened at Stratford? The FBI had a paid informant that was working for, was it Lasser or Anonymous? And they knew the attack was happening. They knew it was happening. And they had this was a company that was specializing in telling people when they'd be insecure to go to what nation. And all their credit cards got hacked, basically. And the FBI knew about it, knew about when it was happening, didn't say a word.
So here's an interesting thing off that a little bit is I have a company we're doing a SaaS evaluation for because marketing is all about let's throw all our data in the cloud and they're gonna help us do all this interesting stuff. And I'm like, great, tell me how it works. So they bring the company in and they're like, okay, well, we do this stuff and here's what we do and we're in these data centers and oh yeah, we use one database. I'm like,
For all customers?
for all the customers in that pod, yes. And they're like, oh.
Pod?
Who manages security? Oh, we manage security. We have lots of tables and it's fine. We've never had an issue with it. I'm like, great. So when the government comes and knocks on your door because one of your customers did something they shouldn't be doing, what's gonna happen to my data when they take it? And it's no longer available to me. And they go, oh, no, IBM bought us, so we'll let them deal with it. I'm like, ooh, okay.
Basically
too big to
That has
fail.
happened in the past where people
Right.
have taken
Co-location.
they lost their data because the FBI took the servers over and they were being monitored on it. I'm trying to remember who it is, but I don't have to.
It's happened,
But the contract says it won't be a problem.
right?
And if it is, they'll refund your money for next month.
That's why
Right.
when
For
you
next
put your
month.
data
We're
in the
sorry
cloud,
you can't do
you
it
should
this
always have
time.
it backed up locally
We'll give
because
you
if
a
you
month free.
can't trust that something like that won't happen at all. That's like even Amazon a couple years ago had a problem with one of their servers where they updated their routers and basically dropped down a whole bunch of customers and the people had lost all their data that was up there for a while. So, I mean, even the big guys lose their data. So, you know, just because your data is up there doesn't mean you shouldn't have a copy of it someplace else.
What is your question about skill gaps?
Oh, security skill gaps. So what's our unemployment rate in security in the Twin Cities?
Negative 10%?
Yes,
Is it really?
Is it
Yeah.
negative 10 now?
Oh,
I think it is. It's
That-
anywhere between 7 and 12.
Oh, sorry, 90% of all statistics are made up on the spot.
Right. I was talking to a recruiter like a month ago, and UHG is hiring not 2 or 3, 12 cybersecurity positions open.
So regarding that, do you guys all trust recruiters when recruiting for security positions?
Oh no,
Does anyone trust recruiters?
you should not trust them as far as you control them. Also, you should work with many and not one.
See, I don't work with any of them.
Or none.
I pull out of the chain of trust within the customer organization. Says, who do you know that's an expert at this, and let them find the people within, which is much more reliable than, because from what I've seen is the recruiters see if they have word security or HTML on their resume somewhere, in order to be indexed, they must be a web expert, right?
Right. So how do we deal with skill gaps in security? Because you're not going to find a senior security professional. It's very hard. Someone that knows.
That's my biggest concern.
Yeah.
Is that, well, I think we would agree that the complexity of IT systems has been increasing. And I think we would agree that our reliance on the security of those IT systems is increasing. But the level of understanding and skill is not.
I think it's very important for
Maybe it's improving a little bit.
Right. I think it's very important for organizations to define what security is, and that brings us back to what is security? And what does that mean to be a security professional? Is it infrastructure? Is it border or perimeter control?
You got the
They
whole
don't-
8 domains, that's the
It's a
problem.
lot, but how you can't, we're an inch deep and a mile wide.
Well, we are, but not the people we hire.
That's why
So if you're
we're
looking for,
specialized.
if you're looking for, you know, physical security, you're gonna hire a cop or a former MP, right? Hopefully not Bubba with a gun. If you're looking for someone to do IP scans, you're not hiring somebody who does policy. And I think that's one of the problems you're saying, you're correct, when you're dealing with recruiters, they hear the word security and it must mean the
Right.
same thing.
Right, but you have to define what that position looks like and how many positions do you get? Do I get 10 domains? Do I get 10 positions? Do I get 8
Right.
positions?
That's why I
Usually
told
you don't, right?
Even in the domains, you got people that have to specialize, especially the way the domains are set up now.
Right.
But I mean,
Yeah,
you have to go with.
I don't know if a single security person that's good at more than 2 or 3 at a time, actually good at.
You have
They've
to-
made them projects in all 10, but.
When you said physical security, I had an entirely different viewpoint of what physical security meant anyhow. I wouldn't expect a cop or anything to be any good at
But if you look at-
locksmithing or intrusion detection or
Sure.
CCTV design or.
Yeah, your version of physical security is the pressure pad on the door when you walk in the door, which is something you've designed. in the
I
past.
mean, my ten is you go out and you get Sonny Corleone and he handles it for you.
Which would be great, except your data's in the cloud.
Since you guys
There's lots of rain.
Right.
Since you guys mentioned recruiters, I was on the phone with Robert Half Technology today, and we were talking about a security position, and they said, well, we like to do evaluations, have you do a skills assessment so we can send that score to the customer as some indication of, whether you're good or not. And if you don't do well in the assessment, we just don't send it to them. I asked them, so what assessment do you do for people who are in security? And she said, well, we really don't have many. Well, we'll send you, I think the one they wanted me to do was network security. So a very specific cut and dried area of security, but how do you assess security?
Right.
And depending on the job role, depending on the person you're talking about, and here we're just talking about the workforce, we're not talking about your uncle or, whoever you have to deal with in your life whose lack of security is now threatening you because you're close to them.
So every recruiter I ask, I'm like, oh, really? So how many security people do you have that, you can send me resumes for? They're like, oh, we have tons. We have lots. I'm like, really? Because the unemployment rate tells me, no, you actually don't.
Well, they might, but they all currently have jobs, so.
Right.
Bring your checkbook.
Right.
Yeah, they have tons that they found on LinkedIn.
They did say that they have more positions than candidates right now. They were upfront about that.
That's slightly refreshing from Robert Half.
We're hiring.
Everyone's
Green card's
hiring.
okay?
I'm hiring.
What are you hiring though? Because, security, it's like this big. So if I've been doing Unix systems, databases, disaster recovery, took CISSP, took ISSAP, but you want somebody who's been sitting in front of a sim for 3 years.
Right. That's not, I know.
I can learn to do that. I've got 2 of them at home, but
I agree.
how do I connect?
You have 2 people at home sitting
No,
in
I
front
got Splunk and I got
Oh.
But
He's really concerned, really concerned. My kids are, I just don't trust where they're not on the internet. 24 hours a day, I'm gonna check.
well, I'm trying to learn stuff because, I'm getting a bit tired of databases and security seems like it's a nice negative unemployment, but I haven't sent many resumes.
So your problem is chicken and the egg, right? How do I get they don't hire without experience, how do I get the experience, right?
Well,
That's a lot.
sort of that and sort of, I don't want to sit in front of an appliance and I don't want to be network security. I kind of actually want to tell people you're doing it wrong.
Well,
You can leverage your domain's experience to show that you are ready for something other than the entry level.
Absolutely.
right.
Because you've been
Yeah,
doing
but
security,
well, that's
which
what
is not
just at the
wearing
level.
a security.
Well, yeah,
It's not wearing a security
because,
logo.
so our security manager's quitting and I don't want his job, but I want
No,
security.
you don't want
I
that.
want security.
And it's also clear with applications.
Resume generator.
Just look at this job title. Tony just handed this to me. That sounds like, from a high level, you get to tell people we're doing it wrong, right?
Is this a joke?
No.
What is it? What's the name?
What is it?
Application security champion wanted.
Which application?
Oh, see that, doesn't that go back to the old, what was it, evangelist, software evangelist that
Get
they used
another
to
one?
use?
7+ years of
Where did
experience
you
in
get
security
that?
applications and systems benefits.
Tony's
No
always
suits.
got the hookup for.
Sans training.
Oh,
Anybody's
I see.
looking.
I gotta tell you, that is a very specific area. I dealt with,
Anybody else? Here, pass it.
I've been a member of OWASP for,
Wow, these guys have solved the Y2K problem forever. They use 5-digit years.
Yeah, that's
Perfect.
That's the Y10K problem.
which,
by the way, isn't there,
Weird, I've never seen
isn't
that
the clock in
Yeah.
Unix gonna expire in the next few years?
Next few years. I thought we were good till 2035.
38.
Do they did a shift? They did a digit shift to get past their problems?
Who?
Unix?
They went to 64 bits. So if you get a 64-bit Unix, you're fine.
and then.
If you're still 32-bit,
You
you're
got it,
gonna
you got
be
it.
kind of messed up in like April 2038.
They
April,
did a
May,
shift,
down there.
they did a
You
time
should,
shift.
you should not be running 32 bits by April 2038.
Shouldn't be
Only
doing
in
it
virtual
now.
machines.
Even then, tell
I
you
hope,
you should
I
not.
hope there aren't any, but there will probably be
there will
some.
be, and they will,
Of course there will be.
They
Your
will
time
be
clock system will
very
still be in
strange.
place and it'll still be running that system that was
What do you
built
mean?
in 78.
How many years ago were we
My
using
SCO
these
system is
systems?
running just fine. Oh,
Say again?
How many years ago were we still using 8-bit systems?
We still.
Let's see, 8-bit, 85?
Anyone have a pacemaker here? It's probably got a Z80 in it.
Oh no, now you're gonna give me a heart attack.
yeah.
That's the trouble with if you get a firmware update on your pacemaker, then the reboot kills you.
That's good.
And they have wirelessly updatable firmware.
Well, right, Internet of Things,
Your
right?
new one's gonna be
What
Bluetooth enabled.
wasn't there a movie on that
So I
where
can use my
what movie
headphones.
was that where they actually had the vice president get killed by a hack on his pacemaker?
Oh, that wasn't that like?
Homeland, that was Homeland.
It was the Showtime show Homeland?
Yeah, where they actually killed the vice president by a hack on his pacemaker.
Why would you want to kill a vice president?
Depends on the
Because
brand.
of becoming vice president.
Actually, in all fairness, if you were John Boehner and you want an upgrade before you're
Yeah.
fired, you kill off the other guy and you don't
But
take the slack.
that succession thing doesn't apply to vice president, it's just
No.
the president.
Yeah.
If the
a couple
vice-
more of these up here. Those
Okay.
Cyber Patriot.
If the vice president.
Is that your resumes?
if The president.
Yeah, it says US Cyber Patriot.
That's what happened with Nixon and what's his face?
Asker?
No, the vice president, Richard Nixon's original vice president.
Yeah, it too.
They had to resign because of something
Agnew.
else. Agnew, thank you.
Agnew, yes.
Spiro Agnew. So
Spiro.
they just picked him a new one, they didn't have to.
Nattering and Nabobs.
They picked him Ford, then when Nixon resigned, then Ford had to pick Rockefeller.
Yeah.
I mean, you're showing your age because
Are we
some of
all?
these younger people probably don't remember Nixon at all.
Yeah,
No,
Nixon.
pretty much across the
was more
board.
fun.
Did we talk about Internet of Things enough yet?
Nope.
No,
Because I just noticed that Vulnerability Central on the ISC Squared website mentioned Konica Minolta printers. And so I went and I looked at to see if we're running FTP on our printers, and yes. And then I checked the default passwords, and yes. And you would think that shouldn't happen these days.
You would think.
But
But as you mentioned it, I think I probably still have the default 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on my printer at home that runs FTP. It runs FTP. It runs FTP. It's got a document scanner and
It's just
local
plain
repo library
things.
built into it. You can
Which model?
upload stuff, the C253.
HP? Or is it
Konica Minolta.
And where do you live?
Minolta?
Is how, My IP address is 10.150.2,
That's not routable, you're fine.
and Arizona is 10.52.161.5.
I don't know how big the hard drives are in there for the print cache, but my understanding is there's a hard drive in those things.
Yes.
They're big enough,
And
It's actually
they're
pretty
quite
big.
large.
yeah, so
Because have you tried to buy a small hard drive?
if I know which printers,
It's got like 160 gig in it, and that was the smallest you could install.
Right,
if I know which printer's in Executive Row, and
Yes.
if they print anything, I have the password, you know, it doesn't matter how well the network segmentation is.
For diagnostic purposes, it's got a copy of everything it's ever imaged.
Yep.
Everything it's ever printed, scanned, or anything.
Keep that in mind when you recycle the printer. Don't let that hard drive. leak.
Well, again, you know, I'm trying to influence the committee and I do not have the authority, which, you know, then makes me very interested in how we convince people with the authority to spend the money, spend the time, get the people.
Mhm.
Because, you know, I've looked at our vendor assessment from the auditor saying, here's what you should be able to do in 3 years for your security program. And I'm debating things with one of the IT directors about, well, we're not there yet. And he's like, we're doing all these things.
And they're probably all good, but there's more
Yeah,
to do.
but there's this
there's
list.
always more to do.
Always.
There's never going to, that list does not end.
So when I see skill gaps going back there, I'm like, well, okay, how do you train management?
And that goes back to our original question. When you
Right.
run into these problems, what have you succeeded with?
Yeah.
No one has a right answer.
You can kill off management and then take over the position.
More
FBI
pacemakers?
frowns on that.
More pacemakers?
Yes.
So.
Or just take control of their email account. They can, you know, just send them random stuff, but nobody will know that you're.
It's the most popular.
So, yeah,
phishing
show
program at the
them,
moment.
that's one way. Have a third party. We, at my company, the reason we got money and a new team was third party security assessment, who came in and said, ouch, you got a lot of problems here.
That is the easiest
That is
solution because
It's the best one because that generally has to go to the board.
and they can deliver an unpleasant message without any political.
Yeah, but
Right.
so assuming the message went to the board and the board came back down and then they left it with IT. I'm not sure how much follow through there is.
Because
That
it
depends
should
on
have
the
gone
organization.
to some sort of internal audit to hold IT accountable. It's the only way that it's going to work.
Yeah.
To say,
There are-
we meet and have you moved on these?
There are some of
deadlines?
those board initiatives like that where they do hire an outside audit, that it's more for a checkbox than a care.
True, it depends on what they wanna get out of it, depends on what company you bring in.
If it was
Yeah.
simply one of those things where, well, we have to be, in order to be PCI compliant, we have to have the audit. We're not gonna care what they say, but we're gonna claim we had it. Very much ISO 9000 based where, hey, as long as I do it wrong the same way every time, I'm perfectly compliant.
So then you have to show it.
Yep.
They're going to show it to you.
Anyone heard of the ISO 9000 certified concrete life jacket company? They had a complete process for handling the payments to next of kin.
Wow.
It was a joke example of how ineffective ISO 9000 can be.
How ridiculous it could be if you take it to the wrong extreme.
If everything's documented, it's all there, you do that, you make concrete life jackets, they kill people, you handle the lawsuits, you're ISO 9000 certified.
But you've got a great process.
Yes.
And it works every time.
Deming would be proud.
Exactly. So, I don't know, in that case, what about Home Depot? What about security professionals who worked at Home Depot and said, we told you, we told you, we told you? Find another job.
Well, that's what happened
There's
here at Target,
unemployment
right?
rate, that's pretty good.
You had a group of guys that were at Target. They've been carrying the banner for a while, hadn't been listened. They're all out of a job with the rest of them. I mean, they've all been replaced.
Except for the ones who quit before it happened.
Yeah, there was a bunch of them that scrammed before Krebs blew the.
Nice. It's all about timing.
Oh,
Well,
yes,
true
I
with
don't-
Home Depot also.
right,
Target's information security had a certain amount of turnover, and
they still are.
Well, what was it, they just laid a bunch of people off because they were outsourcing the IT and then they turned around within a month and they hired a bunch more people? It's like they're just sounded to me like they wanted to do a turnover.
yeah,
Exactly.
but I've heard something to that effect. That it was a way to get rid of people that would have been difficult to get rid of because
It's
of.
generally the case for most outsourcing things. I mean, you outsource it for 3 years in order to clear the dead wood and then you refill because then the service levels have gone through the toilet.
Or someone decided it was gonna be cheaper to outsource.
Yeah, never
until
cheaper
it was
outsourced, but it
not.
makes sense, yeah. Someone can't do basic math in the CFO's office.
Right.
There's profit involved, it's not savings. Nonetheless.
So what do you do with Internet of Things at home and not at work?
Don't allow it.
Right.
Segment them outside my
I want my dryer to tell me when the clothes are done, so I don't have to go up and down stairs all the time.
I want my thermostat to know when I'm home to increase the heat,
Yeah.
or know where I'm at, so it has GPS, so it knows when I'm close to home to turn on the heat, or the.
How about Xfinity, so it can help you with your locks and windows and
Oh, right.
everything, it's all just helpful.
You just
And
have,
Amazon too.
So from a security standpoint, I mean, there's been a lot of talk lately from the television manufacturers about how totally insecure their Internet of Things planning was for their cameras, their
Yes.
proximity control, all of those things.
Yeah, your baby monitor that you can watch on your iPhone.
And I don't think,
Lots of people can watch
Or-
on
or-
there.
Not everyone can watch on their iPhone.
I think the problem is us for
Password.
security people, the biggest problem with us is for security people is the CEOs, the CIOs, the C people that have no clue how the world works. And their kid picks up an iPhone, it's the greatest thing next to sliced bread. Everyone in our office must have one. We've had this problem for the last 15 plus years, 20 years, where that happens. And so the cart is put before the horse. If we as security people act as that roadblock saying, hey, let's evaluate it first, let's investigate it, we actually all lose our jobs because they say, yeah, you're just a roadblock to us, being able to
Not a team
innovate.
player, right?
You're not playing
Yeah.
with a team.
Troublemaker.
Right.
Santos had a really good video. They hired somebody to talk with 3 members of parliament who had some sort of involvement with internet security and went into their offices and hacked their Wi-Fi in front of them and showed them how easy it was. It was kind of a surprise.
Well, it's sort of like Senator Ken Stevens describing the internet as a bunch of giant
Tubes.
tubes with dump trucks in them. I like
Yeah.
that. And it's important to have somebody in
Things are
charge
different in
of,
Alaska.
in charge of the internet infrastructure like that.
And that description.
The internet moves slower up there, it's cold.
Kind of apt, but it was, someone was trying to dumb it down to the point to where they thought he could understand it, and that's the understanding he got. Because the internet, it is, the term
Yeah,
bit
no,
pipe is
I-
often
I-
used, but it's simplifying to the point where it ends up being meaningless.
As a metaphor, I was okay with
Yeah.
it too, but
It's a metaphor that works in some ways, but, it
Well,
made him sound really
back
stupid.
when we were talking about compliance and security, I mean, compliance is security written by lawyers. I mean, that's what that is. That's what's wrong with it.
thank you for saying lawyers. I wanted to bring up the EU court decision on safe harbor.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
This is a big
Yeah.
deal.
So-
How many people have data that's got multinational companies?
Or Microsoft, who won't tell you where their data centers are. If you wanna host in Azure, that'd be great, but they will not tell you where their data centers are. They'll give
They
you
will
a
tell
general
you-
idea,
A general idea. In other words, to be compliant with
right?
some of the federal government laws and Defense Department, aerial data has to be hosted inside the United States. They will tell you that it's hosted in, they didn't used to, when they
Right.
first came out, they used to say it was hosted in North America, which meant US and Canada.
And Mexico.
And Mexico.
There was a law
And several other
that Microsoft and Google and Amazon were all trying to push through that would basically bar states from being able to say, my data, if under state contracting, the data must reside within my borders kind of thing. Did that law at the federal level go through? Did anyone hear that? Basically, it was because Iowa and a bunch of others were saying, hey, I'll go to Google Apps if you guarantee that's going to be stored within the physical borders of my state, i.e. my tax dollars will be used within my taxed state. It goes to local workers and local construction people, et cetera. Now in Iowa that would work because we have some massive Google data centers. Doesn't work so well in Nebraska, just across from
Now the hell with
the
Nebraska.
river.
That's right. What the hell?
Yeah, what do they got, like 3 computers there?
Well, they have three people and about 1,000 computers, but that's beside the point. You gotta have something to run that. You gotta have something to run pivot farming operations.
And quite a few missiles.
Drones.
But it basically means that you have
North
to
Dakota, South
have,
Dakota,
each individual state
Kansas, but I don't know.
has rights over the data, so if you,
Makes sense.
the safe harbor, the way I read it, means that if your data is on French citizens, you have to meet French citizens law
Right.
on the data before you could transfer that data off French soil.
Correct.
So we have the data already, right? And,
Don't look at it.
it's like, we're a multinational company, and so the data is in our data center, the data center is not over there. And,
Look
I've
at it
heard,
as a great opportunity to move to France.
We,
but, I would have expected the lawyers to have already come to the committee with the decision. It doesn't seem like it's being driven that direction. I don't know how, I know how some of the big providers are gonna deal with it, but for the medium-ish companies, 3,000 employee kind of size, I think it's gonna cost an awful lot of money to actually fix. And so we're just gonna have to accept the risk that some employee in France is gonna sue us.
Can I go like
And they
this?
will.
I mean,
Three
it's,
monkeys.
Yep,
yeah, but it's always, Europe has always been strange anyhow.
Because they have stronger
privacy
privacy.
laws.
Of course,
They're still
I kinda
clinging
like
to the
that.
notion that there's such a thing as privacy.
but the other thing, as anybody going back to compliance, I was just thought of something, because Windows 10 shares an awful lot of data with Microsoft. How does that deal with some of the compliance issues with HIPAA and so on? Has anybody looked at any of that?
there are ways you can shut it all off.
Yeah,
My
There was
understanding, my
And
understanding
then
is
figure out
you
how to shut
almost
those off.
have to shut off some of the
Core features.
registry edits.
Well, if you segment your network and your internal DNS doesn't resolve to any Microsoft sites, then you control what's inside, right? So you just open it up for updates, let the update come through, or update locally and not let.
Yeah, but what do you do with the guy that's got a laptop that takes his laptop to the local hotel and
Always on VPN coming back in. You could theoretically control it that way.
so you're not allowing him to have access to the internet when he's hooked up to his other device? He has to hook up to a VPN connection?
That's how I would do it. But
It's almost
it's
like
just-
how- that's how
VPN
we're
before
doing
you
it.
log in.
Yeah, it's free authentication.
Can't touch
So
it
yeah.
either.
I know we're planning on rolling out Windows 10 next year though, corporate wide, and
NSA edition?
I don't know what our plans are. It hasn't come up in front of any of the community meetings I've been at.
But that's no different than any major OS upgrade for Microsoft. I mean, everyone, at least if you talk to your desktop groups, that's why it takes 3 years after Windows XP to come out before people had Windows XP on their desktop. It just takes, there's a long planning process. Partially because they have to certify all the apps and dozens of other
It's
things.
completely reworked. There's nothing the same, there's nothing you can do, there's new group policy, there's new ways to lock it down, and you can't go, what worked in XP is gonna work in Windows 10, because it will not. Same thing, it didn't work in Windows 7, so you start over every time with security and desktop engineering and trying to figure out how to work, and how to make an image, and then ensure your apps work.
Yeah, that's also why, I mean, in many cases, their select agreements don't make any sense to go to an enterprise agreement because they're not gonna upgrade their OSs as fast as Microsoft spits out new ones. So
Right.
just at the enterprise level, we're tend to be kind of slow to roll out OSs and, we think, we're Windows 10, but well, you are at home, but we won't be here for a while.
It was last year, we just finally got everybody to the
7, probably, yeah.
Only because you had to.
Yeah,
I will tell you, no company would have moved off XP unless they absolutely had to.
And there are tons and tons
And
of,
that still run XP.
yeah, there's tons of still are, and some of them have locked down, but there are many of the embedded appliances that are running embedded versions of XP and won't be moved, won't be changed for many years to come.
I
They'll just keep
know
running.
plenty of POS terminals still running NT and 2000.
Yeah.
That's what they run as a backbone, but who's gonna replace the POS if it works?
Well, I got my POS terminals had to be replaced
PCI
because of the new chip reader.
Well,
That's just for the chip reader.
That's
Yeah,
just
that's just the swipe piece. That's
Yeah,
not.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's not the
isn't it
underlying
retrofit? Yeah,
application you're
gotcha.
trying to use.
Depends on what you consider point of sale terminal. So if you're talking, the full base with the drawer, that's completely separate than the
Yeah.
splash guard. So.
Right.
But you're right, that is a piece of it. And in fact, all the hospitals I'm working on, they're sweating it because they were trying to meet that deadline and like start ordering. What's the big deal?
Well, except for you can't, there's not enough terminals out there to.
Is that one of the problems right now? They're
Well, that's why,
Not really.
my understanding, that's why they've pushed it back on gas pumps. Gas pumps don't have to meet it till a later date.
yeah, I've yet to see a gas pump with a chip reader on it.
Well, there's this other thing
The
too.
skimmer fixed that.
What is wrong with XP other than it's not under support anymore?
Right.
This is part of the problem we have in the
Right,
industry.
the number of vulnerabilities it has that they will not fix.
Yes, if the patches are available, if they backport or otherwise fix the vulnerabilities, we could still be using XP.
Agreed.
But instead, this isn't just Microsoft, but the entire industry keeps making it more complicated. Each version of Windows or just about any other software is more complicated before, which means it's going to be even more vulnerable. And we haven't it's not even talked about that much in information security, where the problem is particularly bad. We're not talking about how complexity is our enemy, and we need more simple systems. We need to have upgrades where features are actually removed, and not just the security vulnerabilities are removed, that the actual features are removed before they become vulnerabilities, because it's already vulnerable, it's just not public yet.
Well, that's the Google approach. I mean, Google, if you have a Google phone, they'll take a feature that you use every day away from you all day long just because they decided they don't want to support it anymore.
I actually think that's the best thing about Windows Server 2012 is that they stopped automatically loading all these services that you didn't necessarily need.
I remember when I read PCI 3.1, if you have an encrypted, if your network device plugs into your point of sale terminal through the 3-inch cable, encrypts everything in tunnels. And if there's no connectivity of that point of sale terminal to anything else other than your data center, where it's aggregating it and nothing gets in and out that line, it's one virtual LAN per point of sale terminal. What does it matter what the vulnerabilities are if nothing can get in, right? I mean, doesn't PCI say that if you can guarantee that nothing will get there,
But that's not how most people do their.
Yeah, most people have clean pipes.
Right.
They don't have
Yes.
encrypted pipes from their point of sale back to the back end.
Right.
They
It's
assume
all
if it's on my network, it's trusted, and if it's off my network, it's not. And their point of sale is on their network. Now, maybe on a separate VLAN, but it's just on their network in a clear text. And is that perfectly secure? No. But is it a whole lot easier for everyone to design? Yes.
and manage
Yes.
and figure out where the problem is.
Yes.
Because that's gonna be the pushback. That's what I'm dealing with, the pushback is, well, we wanna encrypt. Great. How are we gonna figure out what the problem is? How are we gonna troubleshoot?
I gotta get in the middle of this tunnel. How do I do it?
Right.
And there are whole other issues with encryption. It means now you've got a key management problem.
Right.
And that's another thing, the keys have to be protected. And in some cases, I've worked in environments where the decision was made, okay, we're gonna encrypt now. So I pointed out, okay, you've got a cryptographic key you have to manage. And that is riskier than the data you were trying to protect. Because now that encrypts all of that data.
Right.
So compromise of this single 128-bit or 256-bit key, and that's it. It's just 128 bits to 6 bits. You've got to protect that, and it's going to have to be everywhere that data is decrypted. Either that key or or if there's multiple than one key, which there should be. You've got to protect all of those too, because one massively shared key is also bad. So the encryption doesn't necessarily solve the problem, or it creates more problems. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. It's just that it doesn't. It's not a silver
It's
bullet.
That goes back to your complexity
complicated.
argument.
Yes.
Yep.
In some cases, it's better. Well, maybe we shouldn't. It's not that we shouldn't encrypt it. It's that we shouldn't have the data. It's toxic waste.
Which goes back to the PCI problem of how do I only encrypt it in transit and that should never be at rest in the first place, so it removes 50% of the problem.
Yes.
Or how do I not have to have this data?
Right.
You have employees who have to keep social security numbers.
I got
No choice.
the one thing that I remember on HIPAA when they were talking about encryption, that one of the things they talked about encrypting in use. I never understood how you could encrypt something in use.
You can't, except with some technology that doesn't actually work yet.
Right.
I mean,
So,
I have to see the data. How can I, if I'm using it? how
Yeah,
can
you're
I-
right. You're absolutely right. It-
Half the
it's a-
social security number is on this computer. And the
Half
other
is on
half
this
is on this computer.
Run.
Which is why, if you look at the hackers, they're generally going after memory right now, not anything else. They're looking to pull
Right.
the unencrypted data out of memory where it's in transit. It
That's
can't be
why,
encrypted while
that's
it's in memory.
why part of Target's breach was, it was a memory scraper, so it wouldn't have mattered. They talked about the data not being encrypted in transit at Target. Well, that really wasn't the problem, because they actually
Right,
implanted
it's the
a
memories.
memory scraper.
Right. I mean, yank it before it ever goes anywhere.
Now-
Then I'm gonna encrypt it. I'm gonna encrypt it as I exfiltrate it. It's all mine.
Now,
Well,
there
they're
are
getting
some
past DLP, right?
Hey, you know, if
Oh,
it's,
there are lots of ways to get past DLP though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great when you're trying to catch people that are not trying to
Well,
hurt
it'll
you.
catch the accidental stuff, but
Yes.
nothing.
But
you
the
won't
people,
you won't catch the exfiltration by someone that's actually, that's going to do it.
because they can't read pictures. If I take a picture of the data I want, you're never gonna see it. You're never gonna know what's that.
What was that? There was a movie
Or if
where
I,
the guy
if I
actually
encrypt my own
put
file, you can't read it.
the reader from a fax machine and it's put it on a screen, and as the data pulled past the screen.
Firewall with Harrison Ford.
That was a horrible film.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it was.
Only slightly worse than Hackers and
Oh, God, yeah.
Wait,
Just
you didn't
happened to
go to
watch
the
it
20th anniversary
last
showing
month, like,
at the Mall
Well-
of America a few weeks ago?
It was free.
Yeah.
I'm not from here. There are
But
reasons to drive 4
person
hours,
would
and
go
that's
to
not one.
that?
Well,
You did? If I wanted to bomb a place, that would be the place.
We're gonna get the
I
best
mean,
of the
why
brightest
would
in
you? It's like,
Minneapolis.
no way am I
It was
going
with,
there. I'm not setting
what, the
myself
DC
up.
612 group. It was paid for by
Are you
Nagios.
kidding me?
And there
not
were-
hosted it. Well,
Well, not just paid
Paid
for
for
it,
it,
but
yeah.
the-
I would
Yeah.
never have, well, I
How come we didn't hear about this? You're not sharing.
Well, it wasn't, the Google Calendar was locked, so it ended up on the website.
Right.
yeah, it went out to the DC 612 list and the OWASP mailing list.
A password was required to register.
Same with the
And there were
DEF CON
what,
and the
80
other
people?
places.
Wait. Yeah.
I never
It didn't
turned
fill
out-
the theater, but it was a smaller theater, but yeah, there were dozens.
Yeah, I wished I could have been there because I was up camping, but I was like, okay,
Oh,
you know, it was, I've never seen the movie.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't see that film was because of Angelina Jolie before she got old.
oh, that's why. Boy, did that sound not
And
good.
my
Yeah.
my
That
favorite
sounded-
part of that movie were the really goofy servers that they had that were kind of like transparent.
Oh, those are the Gibsons.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see that technology. Yeah. I was amazed. That fun.
I don't even remember the movie other than Angelina Jolie was in it.
So can I ask everybody who knows
Hack the planet.
more about PCI DSS than I do? If we tokenize
Good.
and we're entering data
Yes.
on a PC we own, that PC is still in scope, right? That person's in scope. Our servers aren't in scope because it's just storing the tokens, but where we enter the data is in scope.
I believe so.
Because that's my interpretation, but I keep hearing, oh, we won't have any credit card numbers, so we're not in scope anymore.
Were you prompted?
Very memory, if you're entering them in there, memory, it's in scope. Cause that's the big part of PCI 3.1 is if you're storing it in memory,
I don't see a truck.
Like I say, it's,
You know, we're
I could let somebody else answer.
gonna do this self-assessment this year, finally.
My personal side.
Very nice.
did you not do them before? Or you had, you don't know?
Not that I'm aware of. Which, you know,
I mean,
is a
if
point
you're
of
doing
contention.
credit cards, you're probably doing something in PCI, even if you're just filling out a form for the bank. The banks usually require you to do something.
Well,
I take credit cards in my little business.
I thought it's
and
number,
I
it's
did
based on
an
transactions.
online 8-question PCI.
Yeah, you're stacking them.
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah,
somewhere
basically,
once initially might have done
You
something.
log into a
but-
website, all the answers are yes, you're compliant.
Yeah.
But then we go back to compliance. As long as the person answering the question is answering the way they think that it is.
Yeah, that's the problem with some of these things, where you're at. It's just, the smaller you get, the harder for it is to get these people in compliance. Yeah. Is my pizza shop that I get, Beek's Pizza, are they in compliance? No.
Yes.
I know.
They
every
just
time
got,
I
they
see-
just got a credit card machine. What do? They swipe the credit card and send the data over their telephone line, because they aren't internet connected.
Yeah, it's the pin pad that would be
It's the
compliant.
pin pad that, yeah, you're right, that has to be compliant.
And there are non-compliant pin pads, but there
But
are
compliant
compliant
ones.
ones, yes. And they are getting better, and yeah, they do encrypt.
But I guarantee you that pin pad probably hasn't been replaced in 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, that's pretty likely, if it keeps working. If, they probably had to pay, some of those cost $1,000 or more when new, 10, 15 years ago. And
Although-
replacements are still hundreds.
It's kind of interesting because one of the little supermarket-y things downtown that I go to has completely, they stopped their swipe machines and they have an iPad with a little 4 square thing on top. They just, every single transaction, I'm like, actually, this is better, slightly better,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got,
completely outsourced.
by
They
the
bring
way,
it up on their
Square,
terminal and they write, okay, this is how much, and they enter in how much, and swipe your card.
Square has a new device it's an Apple credit card, will do RF and will do the pins on it.
Oh,
So where you can slip the new credit cards, or if you've got the ones that got RF chips on them, you can just tap it on them. Or your cell phone, you can tap it. iPhones, you can tap it on. Because if you got an Android, you can't tap it, because Android Pay is not the same as Apple Pay.
Some example.
But
Okay.
that stuff is going in that direction too, but a lot of these small places just don't do with it at all.
Right. Do you wanna go to the next?
That's why you
Yeah, I
pay
was gonna
cash.
say, we're
Yes,
coming
pay
up,
cash when
coming
you
up
pick up
against
your
5
pizza.
o'clock.
Or don't use your bank card, use your credit card.
So,
yeah.
Oh.
that was
what else? I
just-
think we covered what else, haven't we?
Yep.
You haven't allowed in the house, so I
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
We have a couple upcoming events. The Cybersecurity Summit is October 20th and 21st this month, the Minneapolis Marriott Northwest. If you haven't already registered, I'm assuming you're not going, but if you haven't, we have a 10% off code.
Oh, that's something.
If you are a
If you
member
are a
of the
member,
local
yes.
chapter.
A local chapter of UMSA?
No,
Well, our
local.
local chapter.
Oh, okay.
Setting everything to.
And you gotta contact him. Eric.
I'm going.
Woohoo.
Embassy, the security.
Is it worth it?
I'll
have
tell you next month.
No, but I mean, have people gone before? Or is this the first?
No, this is the 5th one, so it's year 5. I'm not going, my CISO goes, and he went last year. It's not as good as Secure 360, but not bad.
The thing I'm most interested in is the next one, the Secure Minneapolis 2015, at the Embassy Suites in St. Paul. We're gonna have a presence there, we're gonna have a booth, and we're gonna do a presentation, but if you've got a certificate from ISC Squared, all you gotta do is go online and register for it, it's free. If you don't, what is it, $50?
$99.
$99? It's $99, it's cheap. If you wanna help man the booth, I think we got 1 seat left to help man the booth.
Yeah, don't worry about me, I'm already paid.
You're already paid, we got 2 seats if you wanna come and you aren't an ISC Squared member. I mean, ISC certified person.
Right.
And the only way you can be an ISC corporate member is to be certified.
Perfect. Also then, we're gonna have our holiday social, but we don't know where
Can we hold it in the
or
club?
when, so.
In the
Okay, so
club.
the Secure Minneapolis is
Yeah.
free to people who are,
If you
If
hold
you
this,
register.
yes, it's
if you register.
If you
And you
register.
register where?
Well, and if you got the email, there's a link on the email.
Which
If you don't have
It's
it, give me your
ICS
email address and I'll
Nationals
send it to you.
event.
Oh, okay.
And so it's on
I
their
haven't looked at my
website, but-
emails in 100 years.
Also apparently now if you do Google it, it does come up as an option. It took a long time. You couldn't find it before, but you can find it with a Google search of Secure Minneapolis. That took a while.
But it's like I
So-
say,
That counts as CPE stuff?
Definitely.
Yes.
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 And because it's a national event, they submit for you even.
Oh, whoa.
So you register and show up and you get credit.
Unfortunately, I conference that.
So
Have they
back,
had one before?
Not in Minneapolis.
Not
They have them like quarterly all over the
I
US.
gotta find out.
they
they have them all around
they
the
have
world.
been in the past. They haven't had one here in about 4 or 5 years, but they have been here in the
5+
past.
Minneapolis' firewall is so good, it's insane.
Last one I think was on, the mandate was big on it, and it was on, a lot of your, state-sponsored threats. But that was like 4 or 5 years ago.
My state doesn't sponsor any events.
And also, some of the corporate should realize St. Paul is not Minneapolis. They should say secure Twin Cities,
That's the
or
same.
secure Minnesota Twin Cities.
It could be worse.
It could be worse.
There's a board game that calls us to live.
Back in the day, that was fighting words.
So if anyone is interested, I should have told him. So Secure 360 is expanding now this year into Iowa and Wisconsin. So it's confirmed, there's dates and venue is already booked.
I saw an email saying the call for presentations.
Yes, call for
Till
presentations.
November something.
There's that.
Cool.
All right.
Somebody asked if the holiday party could be virtual and with Google Hangouts, you can have 20, which I think would actually kind of cover
Well, I
the
mean,
visual turnout.
Right.
Biggest problem we've had with the holiday is socials is we have lack of membership showing up. Last time we had one couple besides the board. We're thinking we'll have it, because most of the meetings have been here, we're gonna have it in the southwest area of the cities. Maybe that might help a little bit, but Christmas is never fun, so I think we're gonna be in the middle of the week, some night. And pay for a couple drinks and some food. You mentioned something about, who was it that on the board last night that mentioned something about some of these brewery houses?
Microbrew, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Microbreweries.
Yeah. There's like a million of them, although I would imagine we have to book something and for the holidays.
We need to get that going in a hurry. If you have ideas,
Pedal pub, it may not snow.
Yes, somebody brought that up.
in December,
Yeah, that would be like awesome, yeah.
No, as long as you keep moving, I'll probably stay working.
We'll
Okay,
probably
okay,
get,
you gotta dodge the people with the squirt guns and-
Yeah, I was gonna say, you gotta dodge.
Capture this to a risk.
I see people running those pedal pubs, they don't seem to have a lot of time for drinking.
Oh, yeah, just pedaling.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And not that much, I mean, I'm just, I see more people talking on their cell phone while they're driving than drinking while they're pedaling their pedal.
And the effects are basically the same.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty much. We're here.
They drive better
Okay.
drunk than on the front.
Well, they had one that tipped over the other day. So, hit a few people.
well, I think we're
All right.
here.
Done.
Take some food with you.
Take some food, get some flyers.
Thank you for hosting us. Great food and water.
Driveway over the frontage, sidewalk.
And I thought this went good. I thought Amber did a great job. So I thought this was great. I think it's a good idea. Maybe we will have more often.
Partly that's why there's so many sensors.